scoochie in more?
Yeah.
There you go. Hi.
There. I'm here.
Nice. Phone call.
Phone call in the airship.
Somebody was waiting to call until just then. Hi, Jenny Gold. They're playing Dub Conscious in the background. Adrian Zelski, HGH Seed Company. Come on the show, Adrian. Live from the mighty Veedverks airship. I'm Travis Lippert, CEO of Verks Unlimited Limited, better known as Veedverks.
And I'm Julie Richardson, Director of Commercialization and Promotions. And today we have our guest and Canafam, Greg Duran from the Good Lab.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi to Larry Love. Hi to Bubba tuning in.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
All right.
Tell us about dumbass Texas.
Oh my God, I'm starting right off. We're just jumping right into it. So, essentially I'll talk this more from a personal point of view is that I won't go to Texas because there are harpooning people that are down in Colorado and using unjustifiable probable cause to search their cars and running them through their law enforcement system essentially just because you're from Colorado. We're seeing it in a few other states, but probably not the level that we're seeing in Texas. And, how do we know that? Well, we get a lot of calls from people that are looking for some help or advice or a lawyer in Texas. But we've discovered some areas that are definitely still back in the early days of Prohibition and still enforcing the law to the point of giving people felonies for distribution if they have one candy bar with 100 milligrams in it, using the total weight of the candy bar. So that's a known issue, but Texas is not making any progress when it comes to changing their laws. They are trying to having some allowance for people that have extreme conditions, but Texas is probably the hardest state to see any kind of real change. But it's so disjointed, we don't even like to talk about the laws down there.
So they're running a conveyor belt of people who they're busting for drugs just because of their license plates.
Yes, so for their license plates.
Dumbass, how do you spell dumbass? Texas?
Wow.
D-U-M-A-S, Texas?
Dumbass, Texas.
Dumbass, Texas.
So yes, what it is they don't have any money to run their little police departments and sheriff's departments, and without weed, they're not going to be able to maintain supporting these little police departments, so they have free reign to do what they want, including violating people's rights. That's the big issue. At what point do you allow them to probable cause and to them to look at your car or to do a search on your car? Apparently, their laws allow them to search anybody's car with very, very scant probable cause, including saying, I smell marijuana. Well, the advice that I tell people that are in Texas is keep some cigarettes, and whether you smoke or not, immediately if you get pulled over, light up some really nasty old fucking cigars and smoke that crap out of them, and then say, if there's any probable cause, you can say, how could you smell that? I was smoking a cigar when you rode up, right? Yep. So that takes away that probable cause. So we have to understand kind of how it works and what use they're using. They can't smell weed because you can't tell. And then the other kicker is everybody from Colorado smells like weed. Come on, man.
Yeah.
How can you not?
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I got pulled over. I drove to my hometown.
Yeah, you had the
I was on the way back.
Kansas experience.
Yeah, the Kansas Highway Patrol pulled me over for improper. Didn't turn my turn signal on long enough. Supposedly,
long enough?
Yeah. But I saw that guy so far behind, and I wasn't breaking the.
So were you using binoculars to see if you had Colorado plates?
Yeah, I think that they saw my plate in Topeka called me in.
They have spotters
and called me in because it was super icy. I have a rear wheel drive car. I was just trying to keep it on the road, as was everybody, and. There was a big wreck in Topeka that when I went around, I saw this cop go, and about 30 minutes later, I got pulled over for
not signaling.
Not signaling.
So they're using it's people as probable cause because it's a high probability. In Texas, there's some places just allow you to pay the fee and the bond, and it's really all set up to get finance and money. We just have to admit it. I think the next thing we have to really look at is how each state, the laws in each state, and how they can enforce them, and how it can impact you. I have someone that was coming from California, a veteran that was coming here, and he had his own personal 5 ounces, and it was above the amount, and they tried to get him with a felony for a prison term. So, each state has its own individual. Personally, I don't go anywhere, and I don't really store anything or keep anything in my car. I just kind of wait till wherever I get. Now as far as personal, for somebody in their purse like you, that's a whole different thing. That's a different level of a personal search that they would have to have probable cause. So,
right.
There's a lot of going on.
What about to open this up? This Stash Logics case. It's preset on 420.
Yep, that's the right way to have it in your back of your car. You can have that.
So all future highway patrolmen, the combination to this case is a consecutive sequence in the Fibonacci series. It's 358. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. So if you open it up.
This is a great idea, and this is actually what the law says that you have to have in your car. Anything you have stashed has to be in a locking box. No.
They can't open it?
They're not supposed to without
if you could open it.
Probable cause for that specifically. So anyway,
I really like my Stash Logic box. I'm just going to do a little shout out. I was concerned because I have a tendency to spill things about having something light colored. I have spilled things on mine. It's the same color as that, and it doesn't stain. It just wipes right off.
Everybody should have something like this. I tell people, even like a lock box that you have in the back of your car, even with those little funky keys.
Right. That one, usually child-proof also means Julie-proof, and those boxes are easy for me to handle.
And then mark it up and say it's my own personal medicine and make a big deal out of it. But, personally, I don't believe anybody should ever reveal to any law enforcement that you're a medical card holder, because it'll be on your record forever. And then they can use that as probable cause if they want. And some law enforcement do, even state-to-state sharing of information. They know in some states that you're a medical card holder in Colorado if you've ever admitted that you're a medical card holder to a state patrol in Colorado. And we have cases of that. Another big issue when it comes to that is people reporting people that have dreadlocks and such going into the park and then sending the park police to check them out. And we're having that happen. Like when you go into the park and the park person at the gate sees you got dreadlocks or a marijuana sticker on your car, they'll send the park police to come check you out, and then they'll give you a ticket for consuming in the park. Then like Estes Park or whatever, because it's federally illegal. So they're targeting people who look like they smoke weed.
Yeah.
That's why I keep it super down low.
Yep.
It's
the old school way.
I have
we
a little
stay
tiny
there, man.
blimp sticker on my license plate.
I don't have anything on my car, anything that indicates. But I got something else to talk about, and the very reason I wore this hat, and because I've never worn a marijuana hat before, and I tried an experiment, and I went to the International Bakers Exposition, and one day I wore just a Colorado hat, right? Mm-hmm. And people were like, yeah, hey, yo, what's up? Tried to, see what I was doing. And then I came in the next day and wore the hat with the marijuana leaf on it that I, bought down on the strip. And everybody wanted to talk to me. They wanted to know where I am, what's going on, are you in this? Are you looking for equipment? Are you have a dispensary? Do you making edibles? Do you need packaging? How can we help you? Here, can I, scan your pass so I can get a hold of you? It was a whole different experience. Everybody in all these states want to know what's going on. They want to have an idea, and they're not scared anymore.
Right.
They're not
so
scared.
what were you thinking the response was going to be? Did that blow you away?
Well,
Or-
everybody I talked to the day before, pretty much, when I told them what I did, I gave my business card. Of course, my business card has a leaf on it.
Yeah.
Then they would start to talk to me, and they're like, hey, it's legal. Our state's just legalized. We're in Chicago. People are calling us. People in these other states like Tennessee, Kentucky. Oklahoma's a whole nother thing. That's a little free-for-all-y. Kind of like where Colorado was in 2010. Still in the gym bag days.
Gym bag.
Yeah.
Full of
carry-
weed. Just drop it off the dispensary.
Well, you come into the dispensary and then somebody looks at it and pays you cash for it. I mean, some of your listeners probably remember the good old days.
I want
like
to
that.
see Oklahoma. Like, I'm hoping that the Oklahoma Cannabis Expo goes on next.
It should be
next
interesting,
spring,
and I
but
have a lot
wanna
of
go
people
there. I wanna see
that
it.
that have been clients that are moving to Oklahoma. That have grown here
Yeah.
or grown hemp, and they've decided and they bought their 40 acres and got them their
Yeah.
license, and they're going to go for it in Oklahoma. So it'll settle out. Some of the other states handed up to some of the big players. You had to have $5 million equity, or something in your in your bank account before they'll even consider giving you a license, but, luckily Colorado kind of did it free for all. And we did something that we have to really recognize is that we are at the apex. Everybody I talked to there said that we want to know what's going on in Colorado because they're doing it. They understand we didn't do it all right, but we've done it hard, old school, pioneered, trudged through it, figured out the problems. We're still got problems that we haven't figured out when it comes to testing and what we're doing and process validation. But, having a Colorado label in any way when it comes to weed elevates you to the next level in a way that I can't even explain. And the respect that people have for Colorado for bucking the system and telling the feds to just screw off, we'll do it. People really recognize that as a really valid a really valid pioneer, libertarian thing is that we respect Colorado for this. Because you guys did it. We were scared. And we're like, we were scared, but we did it anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's courage.
Yeah. What about, I don't even want to talk about that. I'm just saying that, you know what? NASCAR had blue on the lower quarter panel of the number 2 car in the Xfinity Series regular season championship race.
You're still sore about all of that.
They had blue on it this past Saturday.
I know. Can you believe that?
What's the problem? That's what we could talk about next. We have a product that has 0.00065% Delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol in it. And so you've got a vape company on a car. We have zero THC
I think
in our product.
the biggest problem is
0.000.
who is the governing body of these different entities and what is their idea of what this is, because a lot of people that are making the decisions were so indoctrinated during the Prohibition and they were really fed all this propaganda they can't knock themselves out of this singular thinking about THC. And that's part of the problem. I think that we've created this idea that somehow that this plant creates people that go crazy, and they still have that in their mind.
Madness, absolutely.
Reefer madness is real, and the reefer madness is the people until NASCAR brings in people that are reasonable, that have not been propagandized for who now is 50 years. Is anything going to change? Because we're seeing some changes now. One of the biggest changes we're starting to understand is horse racing. Horses really now are starting to look at this as another alternative. So it means that it's being driven from the bottom up until the drivers and the fans say, we want this, and maybe possibly, a campaign that pressures the governing body of NASCAR to say that this is ridiculous to have this restriction, because in the long term for auto racing, they need sponsors. They really need this money because that's what feeds the competition. And then that's what it's really about. What's advertising on the car, they have total control over. It's really ridiculous. I don't understand it, but I think we have to really make sure that the people that are making the decisions are making it for the right reasons, not because they've been fed propaganda for the past 70 years or whatever,
Absolutely.
But we are seeing some changing. We're seeing some change in WADA's made some changes, adjustments to
WADA?
The governing body for athletics. Your competition number
World
is
Anti-Doping
Yep,
something.
Yep. Association, or I can't
Yeah.
remember. But they allow during non-competition that during random testing you can have a higher level in your system because people are using it for recovery.
Yeah.
But for competition, it's still, that hasn't changed. But, they have other drug problems. This is the least of their worries, If you really look at it, the only medal that was saved if they already test positive was, what's his name, the Canadian snowboarder. And he said it was a contact high, and they said, okay, you're cool, and kept his gold medal. He has a dispensary in Vancouver now. I'm a Canadian snowboarder. I was in the car. What can I say? And they're like, well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, you're good.
Do you think you could test positive from a contact high?
Yeah, you will.
Yeah?
Depends on
Hot
the
box
level.
a car?
If you're testing it like we talked about at the 15,
Yeah,
and
15
using a
nanograms
GC
per milliliter.
If you're using the GCMS, you'll see it. At 50, with just the random stuff like that, you won't see that contact high. That's the difference. So it's what your contact, how much exposure in the last time, but a lot of those urine strips don't work. They're not coordinated. They're not manufactured according to the way they're supposed to do.
They're
supposed
not
to
stored right.
They're not stored right. They have to meet SAMHSA. It has to be SAMHSA approved that it meets the requirements in
What's
manufacturing.
SAMHSA stand for?
Oh, it's some government acronym for who determines
SAMHSA
them.
determines if these strips are proper or not.
SAMHSA, you can look it up, and it gives a whole guideline. It's like a PDF of 102 pages on how you conduct drug tests and work free drug place and all that stuff.
So if I'm a truck driver and I've got to take a Department of Transportation drug test, and the cutoff is 50 nanograms per milliliter, and then the follow-up is 15 nanograms per milliliter. And in Colorado, unless I'm misinformed, it's 5 nanograms per milliliter.
That's for DUI. That's a whole different thing.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
only for law enforcement and DUI, but if you're a patient, you have to prove impairment, the law enforcement side.
I think my next door neighbors could have a good case if they ever get pulled over for 6 nanograms per milliliter that they live next door to me.
That's probably a good excuse. That probably would work. But I mean, I think that we have to look at what levels we're looking at, and unfortunately, anybody in transportation needs to be super
So,
clean. And then
50 is when the strip turns, and then
that's the limit of what the requirement is, unless you go to 15, and that's their detection level. So generally 50 is the number, and if they detect something, that needs to be sent to someone that has a GCMS, like Quest or one of those people. They all use GCMS.
if you're making a
Or
tincture, let's say that you make a tincture, and let's make an isolate-based tincture that has, or two different versions of tinctures. One is isolate-based, and the input has, in Colorado, non-detectable THC in it.
Well,
And
you're
then you
asking
mix it
hard
up-
questions.
You mix it up in coconut oil or whatever, and there's an isolate-based tincture that'll probably test at 0.00065.
Will you test positive?
Yeah. So, and then if you're taking like Eastern Kentucky brand, Farm Bill compliant 0.3% THC in that tincture, if you took one dropper of it, would you test positive for a DOT test?
Probably.
That's what I figured out.
I would say absolutely, because there's a lot of, man, if you did that every day, if you did it a couple times and waited a couple days, probably not, because it depends on your metabolism and your weight. But there's also some other issues that we have to deal with isolate that, I don't want to go into details, but I know some people, and I'm not sure what they were doing, how they were taking it, but I have a pilot that bought some isolate-based MCT tinctures, and something, I don't know what, but they turned bright orange, and he took it anyway and went in for his test and tested positive from a isolate-based MCT tincture.
What did it turn into?
I don't know.
It was exposed to UV light. It changed colors.
Yes, I don't know because it changed in.
So what did it turn into?
I don't know. I tested it and I detected THC in it. I don't know where it came from. I don't believe it.
So
I don't believe it. It turned into THC in the bottle. He says he made it from pure isolate. I didn't see the test report from the isolate, but you know, it's a lock. It's a court case now because the guy lost his job. So he went after the people that he had it white labeled for him.
Huh.
So anyway, those things are happening, right? So
yeah.
We have to recognize that we don't understand what happens. It might be just in MCT, you know, it might be in Sapphire. I don't know, but this whole testing thing is not really ironed out, and the methods for how that we're doing it hasn't been ironed out. You know, are we using the, you know, how are being tested? But I don't think anybody should be tested using the thin layer chromatography urine dip strips.
Is that what you get at Walgreens? You know,
Yeah.
I walked through. It kind of makes me angry knowing what I know about testing. That they sell these kits that could, you know, if your child is using CBD and trying to, you know, it's going to pop.
It'll pop off with all kinds of things, and
Yeah.
chocolate and raisins and who knows, you know, and we don't even know. They're not dialed in. They're not manufactured to real standards. They're made in China. So we don't really have a good idea of exactly how or where these ones that you see at Walgreens or Big Lots, what they are. Are they detecting? Is it real? And people will be, you know, the parents will say, oh, you're smoking weed or whatever,
Right.
and test it, and they're not. And the kids will say, no, I'm not. And they're just using a faulty testing that they
Right.
bought for $1 at Big Lots, right? So these things are just causing more problems. The drug testing companies that they go in and say, oh, we'll create a drug-free workplace, are using, they're not explaining to the employers what the requirements are to get a valid test. They just hear, oh, you're fired, you called in, you've been smoking weed, and people are like, no, I swear I'm not, and there's nothing they can do about it because their reputation is already ruined from a really crappy test that they bought on Amazon for $150, right?
Or is your reputation improved?
Well,
I think you're cooler now.
I worked at a place in Boulder, and I asked them if they did that, and they said, are you kidding? If we did that, no one would work here. So, you know,
Yeah.
I knew that was the right place.
Do you remember that one time? I know that you've done a lot of samples, but one time I mixed up CBD and no, it was just, I think it was just almost pure CBD, but
That was early days.
and it changed colors like
Yeah,
you were talking
yeah.
about, and it changed into this beautiful purple. And I saw you at Sensi Night, which I think is going on tomorrow night, by the way. Shout out to
Okay.
Sensi. And you
And it
tested it,
isomerized.
and it came back with CBDV in it when there was no CBDV going into
Yeah,
it.
it
You remember
isomerized,
that?
and that's a big discussion right now at a lot of the chemistry, cannabis, of what this molecule does. This plant and this oil and the things we're making is not stable. None of it is stable, meaning that it's constantly changing. It's changing by heat,
Super
time,
photosensitive, I'll tell you that.
UV,
UV
all
will-
all these things that happen in the UV is a completely unknown, untested pressure, vacuum, all these things we're doing, and these are all chemistry. So every time we do these things, we're changing this. If you heat it and then let it cool, it changes while it's cooling. I had some oil and I put it in the freezer. It was frozen, right, in a regular freezer, and it was oil. It was a full oil. It hadn't been winterized. And I took it out and set it on the counter. Just let it sat there. I was letting it finish, thaw, whatever, and I didn't, look at it for like 6 hours. I came back, even though the outside was still frozen, the inside started erupting up with like foam.
Huh.
And I tested that. That was different than what was the outside. So the center from the temperature, even though it was coming out of frozen cold, had changed different from what was on the outside that was still frozen. Because it started to decarboxylate at a different rate from the outside as it warmed up in the center. And I see that stuff all the time. Stuff change by just sitting there.
Yep.
Isolates, you mix it with an oil. Distillates want to crystallize. I mean, that's where the whole that honeycut stuff is to stabilize the crystallizing THC in this vape juice. That's
Okay.
what that honeycut
So
that they were selling.
one time I had a big, beautiful jar of distillate, and it was
Did you show me that?
I may have. It was a big, beautiful jar. This was a long time ago. This was like
Early
it's
days.
before the even isolate was available. It's before anybody even made that. But it looked and behaved like honey for quite a long time through a few different temperature changes, including this is the winter, and pop that top off, put the top back on, and began a crystallization process in that jar where there was like a condensation nucleus or a crystallization nucleus or something from the opening of the jar, and it boom turned into a big solid rock in the middle of that jar. And so, we were
dig it
messing
out?
around. I pulled out the non-crystallized stuff and sent it off for testing, and that came back like super high in THC, and it was like the CBD.
Did I test that for you?
I think
I
so.
might have did, yeah.
Yeah.
And we were messing with that.
Yeah.
The freeze cool, or heat, cool, heat, freeze, cool.
Yep.
It crystallizes and you get big globs in the middle.
Yeah. And so, what is the problem? The black market vaporizer makers, like, here's what's going on.
Okay, wow.
Here's what's my current understanding of what's going on with this vape industry stuff is that you could, up till very recently, evidently go onto Amazon and for a very reasonable amount of money buy a bunch of cartridges and packaging and all of the doodads that it takes to make vape cartridges in one just package. And the brands were dank vapes and chronic vapes simultaneously. Then you've got to get your liquid that you put in there, and what's in the liquid. That's why we're talking to Greg now, is what's in your liquid. But you could go to a supplier who would I'm not going to say their name, but yes, I am, Mass Terpenes, and they were selling like something. Get your distillate, your THC distillate, or whatever you're mixing it up in, and whatever you're going to pass off is some cartridge, and mix in this pre-blended terpene and vitamin E acetate thickener. And like, I've never had the problem with thickening. Like, our problem is thickening, is when at what percentage does that CBD crystallizes and stuff. And that's what's been traced to these 6 deaths. And it's blown up into such a big thing that it's going to have like super destructive impact on the industry. MassTerpenes.com. Check them out. There you go.
Well, I think vape pens have gone through an evolution extremely quick, right?
Yep.
And a lot of people have tried to fill the need, what was going on. And, I want to separate the people that are doing due diligence in the work like Travis, because, you did a lot of work before you made a decision, a lot of research, real research.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are not doing that level. So there's a lot of products that are ending on the market that should not be there. And my biggest concern is the dark vape side. So when they make a part of the process with hemp and they crash out to do the isolate, they end up with something, you just heard this, it's called mother liquor, and that's everything else. So I have people that are making vape pens out of everything else, and they're taking that and mixing it with MCT. So when you have a hemp crop and it has who knows what, they even could have weeds mixed in there, all kinds of weeds, and then you crash out the CBD to separate the CBD. That should end up as waste. Well, a lot of people are selling that. When I look at it and I test it, it has other things in it because of the chemical process they did, including which I detect as possible pesticides and things like that. Like, I see 5 peak molecules that don't belong in plant world. They're manufactured. I don't know where they came from. And then you're also doing things when you take this mother liquor and try and manipulate it and clean it, like you put it through tea clay, which is a material, or sea bleach, which is like a coral-based, different minerals, and then they use that to pull out the whatever pesticides are in it. You create Delta 8. Where does Delta 8 come from? Does anybody know?
Delta 9?
I don't know. It just appears, and it's right next to Delta 9. How do I know? Because I use a really long run time. I run 18 minutes for every sample, which gives me really good separation of every one of the peaks of the molecules, right? I'm the only one that does that, and I run everything twice just to double check, right? I'm not a one and done guy.
Yeah.
Well, when you have to zoom in that area where you're separating the CBD out, or you're doing any kind of fractionation, you end up with all kinds of peaks when you mix it with ethanol over in this area. Well, that's ending up in vape pens. It has molecules I have no idea what they are. Like natural plant, THC is THC, CBC, THCA, and CBCA. Well, in this fractionated vape juice that they're trying to isolate THC or clean up what's left for more CBD, because it ends some CBD stripped out and it's crashing. They're creating all kinds of things. I think that's what gives people lung burn, and then they're adding terpenes of unknown values, of just random terpenes, and that gives people, and I know so many people that are getting, I call it lung burn, or they start just coughing. Yeah. It's almost just like, and I tell them, you got to quit. You just cannot. And then you have the other issue of a lot of these things. When you put it on a coil and you heat and cool, that coil leaches out iron and minerals and all things into that. And if you have a vape pen and you let it sit and you heat and cool it, and it's got THC, we all know that THC turns into CBN, and then you have a sleep aid. What if you have a bunch of molecules, you don't know what you're doing, and you're heating and cooling and adding iron and magnesium and all these different things from this coil? What are we creating? We're creating a little miniature chemistry experiment in these vape pens with no testing, no knowledge of what's happening. So we're creating all of this. Now we sent it out there, and look what happened. We're sending out unknown, and the bad players are going to endanger the people that are doing it right? That are spending the time buying the proper material. We have all kinds of other issues. I have a client that they're doing some extraction, and we found spiromethicin in the
what's that?
It's a pesticide that's banned.
Spiromethicin.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Well, we don't know where it came from. We traced the plant material. Now we're suspecting that possibly the ethanol has it in it, because they bought ethanol from a source that we're not familiar with, and maybe the ethanol is ethanol and it was done correctly, but there's no requirement for them to not put it in a tanker truck to transfer it that hasn't done pesticides before, and that could end up in the concentrate, right? All these things, because you know how we know these things? That happened in the food products. We started finding pesticides in the food oils we were buying because it wasn't tested. We finding pesticides in things that weren't approved and couldn't make the cut in flour that we were buying.
Yeah. And try and make a CBD infused oatmeal raisin cookie and have it come back and not test positive for glyphosate.
That is a whole nother thing, and glyphosate is a whole nother subject that we don't even understand, and there's all kinds of new rules. That's the most likely to get sued by Monsanto if you test for it, so I don't want anything to do with it.
Really?
There is a standard in a white paper. It's very complicated to get it right, and there's a lot of people that are testing for it now, and you can, but it's in everything. It's in everything. We have to
Even if you think it's organic.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the whole glyphosate thing. It's a whole nother show. So what we want to talk about is what we are finding out about this plant. The phytoremediation characteristics of this plant. People do not understand even what that means. You put this plant in the ground, it's going to suck out what's ever in the ground, and it becomes part of this plant. Now, a lot of these farmers that have been promised these big profits from CBD oil and stuff are planting in the same fields that they had other things like corn and wheat that has been treated for years. Cotton's horrible. That's another Texas thing. Yeah. They can only grow cotton because their pH on their water's all messed up, so they have to do all kinds of treatment to get cotton to grow. But people, you can't put this plant in the ground in any field and expect it not to pick up those things that are in the soil. It's just going to, because we use that. Like in Hawaii, they're using the plant and hemp in order to remediate the fields that they used to grow pineapples, because they've used so many pesticides and things on those fields. They thought it would be 3 years. Now they determine it's 5 years, like 8 crops or 9 crops to get that soil cleaned up before they can ever grow hemp or anything for public consumption.
And what are they going to do with that hemp? Just destroy it or make rope out of it?
I don't know. They're using it only on standard. The big problem is that a lot of the farmers want to grow for CBD oil. They're not growing for all the other things that they can make a profit from, fiber and feed and the things, We're going to have all kinds of seeds because everybody was seeded this year. Only the late bloomers won't have seeds, so there's seeds everywhere. I visited fields from all the way up in the north part of the state, all the way along the Kanzarado border, going to farmers and visiting.
Kanzarado.
All the way, there's a highway, they call it Kanzarado Highway. It's right along the border, 8 miles. You can see Kansas from the road.
Woohoo!
I know. And it's just like Kansas. And then visiting all these farms and seeing what's going on. And what did you plant? Clones, seeds. How did you plant? Did you row shape? Are you using pivots? Are you using flood? Are you using drip strip? How are you planting? And then just finding out what's going on. It's been fun.
So, I have a few built-up questions.
Uh-oh.
One of those is, but I want to get back to the planting and also the testing of that. But do you think if I donated blood that somebody could test positive for THC?
Yeah.
Assuming that I am totally testing positive for THC.
Yeah, as much as you consume, for sure. Yeah.
So if I donate blood, then I could pollute the entire...
Yes. Let's go donate some blood. I'll do it. I'm due.
And then...
I don't know. It's a good question. I really don't know the answer. I wish I did, but that's a whole nother unanswered question that absolutely should be discussed. I don't think so in the volume of the total amount. If it was a little kid, maybe, but...
Do you think if I get a donation of blood that I will be totally loaded up with opiates?
I think they test for
I think they
those.
do. They just
and
do
then
a
what do
quick
they
test.
do? They just discard it? So they test
No, they
all
test.
of the
They
blood?
test before you go in, and they discard it, or they can. I think they can separate the platelets. I don't know.
Yeah, they just want the platelets.
You have to ask a
lot of times.
phlebotomist.
A phlebotomist?
A phlebotomist.
I assume that's with a PH.
The phlebotomist, yeah, I think
How
so.
do you
They're
spell
the ones.
phlebotomist?
Those are the vampires in the blood world that can take your blood.
Can I also say real quick that you should be able to take your cannabinoid-based medicine to school in Douglas County, Colorado, and have it be treated like an EpiPen. And unfortunately, there are kids who are not able to use their cannabis-based medicine
We
in
thought that
Douglas
was
County,
finished.
Colorado.
Yeah, we
But
did.
it's not.
It's not. It's not.
And it's the wrong people bringing it into power that are still prohibitionists. That's
Right.
the problem. So.
And we need everybody to contact Governor Polis's office. Mail a campaign. If you want to know more about it, go to their Facebook page, or they've got their website fixed.
TheGreenCranCampaign.com. Hashtag I stand
And
with
with
Ben.
Ben.
It's not right. It's here. It's in Colorado, and we can't get this right. It's so. Check out
So
the Green
planting,
Cran
huh?
Campaign. Yeah, planting. So, tell us what the. It's maybe 2 weeks, 3-4 weeks at most before harvest.
I
in
think
all
we're looking
places?
at frost line now. Basically, when you're early frost, and then genetics for what, whether it can stand a frost or not, and some new genetics, I'm not sure. We have some pretty hardy genetics that can go through a frost okay, like Abacus and Chardonnay and Colorado Gold, and some cherry wine, Cherry 2, Colorado Cherry. They can soft frost depending on when last time you watered. So we see it. You can watch the frost line, and that's always when harvest is. So up north, they're going to have to harvest sooner. The people down that planted late down in southern Colorado should be able to last up into October, depending on when they get their frost. But we're looking at possible snow above 1,700 feet next week. So there's a lot of farmers that are trying to decide, depending on where you are. Mostly San
above
Luis Valley.
1,700 feet.
72,
Elevate.
72.
72.
So, which is generally the line.
Yeah.
So some of these farms are above that,
Yeah.
in like San Luis Valley. wet mountains down in West Cliff, so a lot of people are really looking at harvesting. And then we have a lot of really small plants this year. It was a really strange grow season. So I've looked at a lot of plants that were really stunted for some reason. And then I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I've looked at every possible technique of planting, and that's kind of what I was looking at is, seeds, clones, feminized seeds, plucking males, plants started from seeds, whether they used mechanic, they used manual, clone planting, plastic culture, row shaping, drip strips.
What's row shaping?
It's you see a lot of it mostly in California where you have the perfect little straight rows, and then they have an implement that takes it and has two discs in it, turns up the soil, it basically gets it ready, and then it lays two drip strips, and then they lay plastic over it, and then the two little discs cover the edge to hold in the moisture so that you can plant
Does
earlier.
that work well?
Yeah, but it's not environmentally friendly. Plastic culture is just not environmentally friendly. Drip strip is okay, but then you have the other problem is that you possibly can hold the heat in if you use black. There's everything is positive and negative. Is what is your environment? What do you have? What is your density? Are we looking for density to drive in between the rows? Are we planting like corn? So many people planted corn. They could go more dense. The seeds are expensive. It's more about how many plants in your entire acreage, how many plants per acre. Are you 2x5, 5x2 on your
2 feet by 5, or so 2 feet
per
rows.
seed of clones, yeah, and then 5 feet between plants, and then you alternate.
Wait, say that again. 2 seeds.
You can do 2 foot rows and then 5 feet between plants.
Okay.
Or 2 feet between plants, 5 feet between rows, so you can drive a truck or whatever, or an ATV. So row width and density and all of that in yield. Learning all of that, I didn't know, but I'm learning so much from the farmers. They're so they have so much knowledge about all these other things, sorghum and wheat and corn, and they've done this a lot. Hay and alfalfa and all these things, and they really want to learn about this, but they're in the very beginning. So I'm bringing science to them. Let's do some real analytics. Let's look at this. How do you determine yield? Well, you take 100 foot by 100 foot and how much you have, do the math on acres and look at the density, and then look at the average yield per plant now, and then you do the multiple, and it's just a little bit of math. Well, they've never been to the thing where you have to determine where to harvest by something that they don't even understand, which is the Delta 9 level.
Yep.
Right? They're having to take that and then understand that and integrate that into the choice of genetics that they did on how long it takes for it to mature and how long before you harvest, and your harvest report, and you separate how many you have, how many acres you have, where is this genetic, how high it is, how much UV, how many days of sunlight. All this stuff is all what we're doing now, and I did a lot of this when I worked for another company. Then we did satellite surveys of fields. We would determine a lot of that to determine levels of nitrogen and stuff like that using satellite calibration. I mean, that. That's what I did before. And then I worked in greenhouses when we had to do, how many germination, take a whole set of seeds, do 100 germinations. How many did you germinate? How many were males? And then you can get a ratio before you plant 380 acres of the stuff on 2 giant pivots.
So what would you say were all of your farming services?
What I'm saying,
if somebody wanted to start being a hemp farmer, what would they call you all for?
Well, I think generally I kind of ask them some very basic questions. Is what have you grown on your field previously? Are you a farmer or are you new? What is the terrain? And have you had your soil, and do you have water rights? That's always what we ask.
How much water do people need to grow?
It depends on what method that you're using to grow. So you're using old method of acre
Crop circles.
feet. crop circles is a lot of water, and you have to have the water rights. And then the farmers are selling the water, and then a lot of the people that have come in have leased these fields where corn gets X amount, but renting it for somebody to your fields, implements, and pivot, 15 to 1800 an acre, where they're only getting like 200 to 300 for corn per acre because of the profitability.
Yeah.
So the farmers are happy. We have this one farmer. I know he's not listening. His name's Bud. He's like 94. He can barely walk. He wants to come and hang out, and then he wants to know if they have any circles he can buy. He wants to buy this land with the big pivots, and he's doing corn, but he's all interested in hemp. He don't say much. But he collects tractors. He has, I don't know how many tractors. He just buys tractors. He's just got a lot of money. So you got all that, all the way to people that are hoping that the hemp's going to help them save the farm.
Yep.
Right.
And that's kind of that thing where they're really putting their toe in and they don't understand it. And that's what I'm trying to help them to understand it,
Mm-hmm.
and then to get them ready if the Department of Ag comes, or they want to send it to one of the metric labs if they want to go that route. But dialing in what the testing is and to understand it and the different things that they do, because I can test best bud. I mean, I do that all the time, for the contests.
Best bud.
That's where you just rip off the very best absolute bud and you test it and you pull out any stems or anything and you maximize the level of THC. That's how you test contests and dispensary weed. I prefer to test as a biohomogenized mass. And of course, they don't like you saying biomass, but taking everything that's in there, everything that you're selling in that sack. People are selling 2,000-pound super sacks and filling it up with, whatever, and then taking one bud out and saying, oh, that's what that sack is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
When we had that whole thing that happened in Idaho, my client, I had the client before they ventured to send it across, the United States, that you reach down in there with your arm and pull out, and then get a good, and then take a couple ounces from each one, and then put it in a bag, and then grind it up and send it to me. And then I took all of that and took an average, and that's how I determined what that entire truck average was, which matched exactly what the lab in Kentucky tested it for. Same method. So we used the same method, and we were really close. A lot of the labs and the metric labs that test from weed, they test, their SOP says you test the very best bud to maximize the amount. You don't really always want to do that because, the Department of Ag takes 2 inches. They're out, clip, 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 best colas in your crop and putting it in a bag and sending it for testing. They only care about THC, that's it.
So, if you have a whole bunch of, like, homogeneity, there we go.
Homogeneity. I can't even say it either.
Yeah, homogeneity is an issue if you're shipping across state lines, shipping anything across state lines.
Yeah, you need to
because
have it
the
all
federal
homogenized.
law says that hemp is cannabis sativa L with less than 0.3% delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinol on a dry weight basis.
You can't leave big buds sitting on the top of your super sack so you get busted.
It needs to be ground up into some finely milled powder.
Into
and then
the way
the
that you're
is,
going to use it and test it in the mains in the manner that it's going to be used in the final product.
Yeah.
That's how you have to ship it.
Yeah. That's the only way I'd ship it is if it was pulverized.
Some of the people that are shipping are not doing that, right? And then you get the whole thing, the pulverized.
It's not smokable flour.
CO2 can do pulverized, but the ethanol extractors don't like pulverized because the ethanol can't get in. The ethanol people don't like the buds because then you end up CBD inside the bud because it doesn't fully extract. I mean, there's every method I tested so many biomass that was post-process, I can pretty much tell you all those different things.
You know what you could do is pulverize a bunch of stuff. Let's say you had a great big hemp field in Kentucky and they tested it and you passed the state inspection, and then you ended up, when you harvested it, you found out that it was like 0.4% THC. And
0.4 or 0.39? No, just kidding.
0.31. 0.31.
Probably okay.
Let's say it's 0.5.
Okay. 3.5
yeah,
or 0.5?
all of a sudden there was a huge heat wave or something like that after the Kentucky Department of Agriculture came out and they you pass that, but when you harvested the crop, it's 0.5 due to, I don't know, the 17-year cicadas came out, and maybe that was it. But you could, so when people harvest this hemp, they like shuck it or whatever, right? And they get the buds off. So then you end up with all these stems that you could grind up and mix back in and get it down to 0.3%.
Sure.
And then you could put it in a Marlboro brand, Altria Jewel hemp cigarette.
So the guys that were doing all the little hemp cigarettes that had the little green marijuana leaf, the wild hemp people. That was one of my clients. So I know all about what they were doing, and they were trying to find kind of the worst, that was not gonna be a problem with THC, and usually that was a super low CBD, right? And it didn't have any terpenes and things like that, so it was just a really like burning old hemp, and that's what they were doing because they wanted to make sure there was no THC in it.
Yeah. So did anybody like it today?
You know what? I always tell people, maybe there is because it's better than smoking spice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or taking Chantix. Somebody please check on Ray Liotta. I was Googling him today.
Oh, no.
He got replaced by the turkey, the slow turkey.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He did.
What happened to Ray Liotta? When's the last time anybody's seen him in public?
He might be gone.
Wow, he quit smoking Nightmare Turkey.
You got we had a lot of questions. I mean, is there any more that you really want to talk about?
Well, we need to make sure that we talk about all your services.
Oh yeah.
We need to,
okay.
The whole reason
and how
why
to
you're
reach
here.
you, how to people find you.
Well, I'm down in Colorado Springs. Most people know me because from up in Denver, a lot of the people that were in Denver that I had clients are starting to find me. We've also set up another drop-off point in Sedalia, and I'll be announcing that soon. We've joined forces with another one of the labs here that's created a hemp lab, so we can test for everything for pesticides, mycotoxins, heavy metals, residual solvents, bio, homogeneity, and then we'll be doing a lot of working back and forth with them to make sure that we're producing clean products. We're also creating more of an environment where it's consulting, where people come in and they want to know what's going on, that we'll sit down with a farmer and look at what's going on their crop. And then we're spending more time out in the field, going out and looking at the crops and saying, okay, this is what's going on, because I'm mostly interested in what's going wrong. What are the curly plant disease that's going on? What caused that? Root rot.
Does it hurt the plants, the curly plant?
Yeah, it does. They're stunted. They don't produce, and then even the colas look different. And then we have a polyploidism, plants that have celery stems that it's like a double stem, and it's big and wide and thin, and it's completely hollow. There's nothing in it.
Huh.
It's crazy. I mean, so seeing all those things, and then we can determine and then look at different stabilities of different genetics in different areas. I used to think it was only 5 areas that maybe had a phenome difference, but I'm up to 13 different areas in Colorado. Very diverse growing areas. Every area has a different characteristic in the valleys and height and elevation, and UV is critical on production. THC is produced by high UV from high elevation.
So the higher you are in elevation, the more UV that you're going to get,
and
the
higher
THC you'll get.
Yeah.
Well, I know as just a general gardener, things like broccoli. You don't pick broccoli till after the first frost.
Yeah.
Because that cold frost
forces it.
That's what makes it so sweet and makes it, taste the way we want it to taste. Otherwise, broccoli is abominable.
Oh no, it's so bitter you can't even
awful.
stand it.
It's
So
awful.
There's a lot of these things when it comes to farming this. I think that I'm not a farmer, but I'm learning and implementing all the other knowledge that I had from other testing and arenas that I've been in, and it feels like that I'm really starting to get a feel for it, but I was hoping we'd be further along in developing stabilized seeds, but there's so many key people getting involved in this right now. We're moving more into the education side. We're trying to teach people and give them real science and how it applies to this. Without that, we'll never move this forward at the level that we need to. And the Department of Ag is actually really farmer friendly. I mean, they're really trying to make this go. They see this as a way where we have a product now.
I've heard that from more than one person, that the Department of Ag wants this to be a successful ag product.
They do. I'm really pleased with that part of it. We'll do it again next year. I have a whole new appreciation for planting and harvest and all the things that go on around farming, where you got this 3-4 weeks of massive activity to get it out before the frost. I think the biggest problem we had this year, if I would put my finger on it, was a lot of people got in really late. They should have, they didn't have stable seeds. They didn't have the clones on time. People actually that got in early was able to get their plants in May, and it got through a couple little light snows without any problem. And the plants that got through that and were planted in that time frame are really actually quite robust. Huh. We had hailstorms, so we get to see what happens if you have a hailstorm, if they come back. A lot of plants flopping over because they have no taproot. When a big wind blows, oh God, I've seen it all. And I'm really on a really steep learning. We can test. It's $50 a test. We can do a rush. There's a little added charge if you need something and answer quick. We can do a homogenized. We can do your different genetics. I'm helping a lot of people who are testing soil. They'll do one run with a certain soil and a new additive to a soil and see what the yield is. And of course that takes time. You can't rush this.
Right.
I have people who are doing genetics that are running one genetics, a fast flower, and I'll test, and then we can say, oh, is this producing the 1-to-1 that you want? And we can help them with that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that work to be done, and that's where I really like is helping people developing to make sure that they're maximizing their yield on what that they have to grow in, whether it's a small garage 30 plant setup or 2,000 acres. I think we're all trying to do this all together. The farmers are really way more cooperative than I think that we have been in the past on the weed side. So.
Well, that's promising. I wonder why is that? I guess they realize the investment.
Well, I think that they want to learn from each other as much as they want to, so they're willing to give information. Row shaping is expensive, but you'll get a better yield, and you can go super dense. You can go 2 foot alternating, and then you get a really thick row with no weeds. I have some co-op people, farmers that are co-oping, and they split a 75-acre farm into 2 to 5 acre plots, and you have farmers that are out there every day at 5 o'clock just hoeing and tending and doing that, and that's really cool. And
I hope somebody's taking pictures of that.
Oh, I am. I'll show you.
Good.
And then they all harvest together, and they come in, and I'm really feeling the best way to harvest is a sharp machete. Because you got to pull it out of the weeds. If you got weeds, you can't harvest those weeds, or you minimize and compromise the value of your crop. But we're not talking about that the migrant workers aren't coming this year. If you go down in southern Colorado, the campgrounds are empty that usually have migrants that drive the trucks that harvest the potatoes because they don't want to travel. They're afraid of ice. So all these farmers are trying to figure out how to use different methods to harvest their crops, combine, swath, all of that stuff, cut, lay in the field dry. There's no one to cut them and put them onto trucks and load them up. And that's where your maximum profit comes from, but there's nobody to do it. The campgrounds are empty because they don't want to come. I mean, they're not immigrants. These are migrant workers that go from cantaloupes, watermelons, to the different crops, potatoes. The guy that's been driving this guy's truck for the last 15 years is not coming this year because he's afraid. He doesn't want to bring his family out. Wow. You see what we've created and how that this is affecting our ability to move this forward by having stupid immigration laws that put these people who are actually the workers at risk.
Right. Well, that's not all they're doing to the Latino community. They're going to their business marketing, because we have a friend that was in the CBD industry, and she's having to go buy a home in Mexico because they're coming in and telling Latinos that, look, if you're in this, you're violating your agreements and your
exactly. That's why they won't come and harvest the hemp. right? So
And they're going directly to them and telling them
we're
that.
creating all of this. They're afraid to come to the campgrounds. They're afraid ICE is going to come.
Right.
So we've created some problems that, we have to figure out how to not let this happen. So.
Well, we're about out of time.
All right. Well, God, we covered a lot. Any one of these subjects we could have went in depth.
I know.
For a whole hour.
Yes.
I know. We're going to chop this down to 58 minutes, get out to Purple Haze Dash Radio so people can...
Well, we're enjoying, learning, and, we're still doing all of the, helping patients when they come, and, usually we can find somebody or something for them to, get them going, or somebody that can help them, and, we get a lot of people now as refugees from other states, asking for help or looking for something, and, the refugee issue is real, and we need to understand that these people are just looking for help and some way that they can get out of this mess that they've got themselves in by using traditional medical system, right? For a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
So that's the part that we like the most, is helping the patients and testing for patients, and making sure that they're getting the numbers right for whatever, helping Dr. Geddes and the different doctors send people to us. So, we enjoy that part, and, all the other testing helps support that side too. So when people come to us for their products or testing, or for the hemp testing, we can use some of that to help patients and people who really need this for recovery.
Power.
It is.
That is really
emotional.
power. I want to be in a place where I can grow. But being able to test it to see what I have.
Yeah, it is. And these people that grow their own, it's amazing what they can do for themselves. And teaching them is so empowering for us. Just giving them advice where they are out there tending their plants, and they know that they're going to make that into something that's going to help them for whatever it might be, whether it's cancer, or, their child's epilepsy or brain cancer. And that gives people, it empowers us, and makes feel like we have some control. When you give it to the doctors, you have no control.
Right.
And that is really hard for people, and you have to submit. Well, a lot of our people they don't submit. They want to take control, and testing gives them a little more added level that they can say, their doctor, I know what I'm taking, I've had it tested, and that gives them more confidence, and their doctors more confidence. So... All right.
Well, thank you, Greg, for joining us. Thank you, Julie, for setting it up.
Absolutely.
Greg Duran, The Good Lab, Colorado. What's your
Thanks
URL
for having
again?
me. Good Lab, Colorado.
Good Lab, Colorado.
You can find that and just look it up. There's a lot of ways that you can find us on a search. Colorado Springs Good Lab, testing, cannabis testing. Terry has it set up pretty well. You can find us. And then if you need any information or talk to us, just give us a call.
What's your number? Do you want to tell people?
Maybe
not.
Maybe. I don't have it memorized.
Well, I have the one that's on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, that you can give them that one?
Yeah, can I give them that one?
What does it end in?
3801.
No, that's Terry's personal phone. So we're trying to keep from people calling our personal phone.
Well,
look them up online.
You can look up Good Lab Colorado, I know. No, it's okay, because patients that come, we're just trying to separate the Good Lab stuff, right? So it's 8323 is the last 4 digits. I need to look it up.
8323.
Yeah. Look it up.
All right. Look it up.
Look it up in email, and everything we do, we're trying to go paperless too.
Nice.
Good.
Well, thanks for joining, everybody. As always, I'm Travis Lippert, reminding you, if you don't get hemp here, get hemp somewhere.
Cool beans?
Cool beans.
All right.